So we are back with the news. The 411 is here. We have guests again, head of Fanbyte Media, John Warren, and EIC of Fanbyte Media, Danielle Riendo. We have a lot of stuff to talk about because of, wow, the past 24 hours, sweet baby Jesus. I don't understand what happened. I'm delirious right now. I've been up since 5:45 this morning trying to get a goddamn 3080 card that got because I'm stupid because I'm an idiot anyway. But again, yesterday there was a whole conversation about Xbox has shown their hand. They had given a lot of people their information about what the box is going to do, what games you're going to wind up seeing. They had some of their and that wasn't a press conference, but it was like a press only piece of content that was supposed to go out, got leaked a little bit early, but we still learned a little bit more about the Xbox Series S. And again, the conversation was all about what was going to happen with Sony. They have all the momentum in weird ways because they haven't shown anything, but they still had like massive amounts of momentum, which was super, super weird. But with that, they also had all the space. They had all the energy in the room to be able to do whatever you want. You could have Vince McMahon the fuck out of that and just walked in and been like, yo, I got all this and there's nothing anybody else can do. And they had their press. They had their, was it a showcase? They had their showcase.
Yeah.
And I'm really baffled, to be honest, about what the initial idea was when they went into their room. Was like, all right, so here's the final cut, y'all. We put this bad boy in Premiere and it's coming out the other side, and now we're ready and it's done. And this is what we're going to show the world with 2 months away, being 2 months away from their launch.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts about what you thought about the showcase. Did you feel like they kind of hit the mark? Where your feelings now after having seen everything that they talked about? I'm going to go to you first, John. About what do you think about the Sony PlayStation showcase?
They certainly hit a mark. I don't know if it was the mark.
They hit a guy named Mark. Is what happened.
They hit a guy named Mark Cerny. Mark Cerny. They hit Mark Cerny.
I love it.
Yeah, I thought it was actually a really strange showcase. One, I think they have Ubisoft disease where they can't get a video right ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like they can't I don't know. There was a lot of stuff that was just like wrong, about what was, they had all this time and they said, Demon Souls is coming to PC also. And then they had to immediately be like, oh fuck, no, it's not. Why did we even say that? There was a lot of weird stuff. There was, I don't know. I don't want to get too spicy, but I also thought it was super strange that they very carefully omitted certain things that were then just posted to Twitter afterward.
Right.
From one person. And that's a very specific tactic that they took. So
yeah,
there was just a lot of strangeness about the presentation itself, but I also don't know. There was a lot of scuttlebutt on Twitter, I feel like, before the actual presentation that seemed to indicate that insiders knew that they would have some sort of advantage over Xbox by the end of this presentation.
Right.
And I could not possibly tell you what they thought that was after that presentation. Because I'm just like, okay, so the box is as expensive as the other one, unless you get the digital one, which are in short supply. It has basically the same number of games on it as the Xbox, and it doesn't have Game Pass on it.
Yep.
All right. And then they introduced a bunch of games that we just knew that we're gonna, God of War. They're like, we got one more thing, God of War 2. God of War is one of my favorite games of 2018.
Yeah.
But we knew, we knew,
right?
That they're just like, this is it. And I'm like, yeah, we know, man. We know. I don't know. They just didn't show me anything that was extraordinary or game changing. I mean, the EA stuff on Game Pass, coupled with the fact that you've got this financing option for Xbox. It's I'm not a big console wars person, but it's Sony really isn't attempting to make it a difficult decision to me, which is
right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Danielle, thoughts?
Yeah, well, for me, two things stand out. One, games are going to be more expensive now. We're doing the $70 thing, which is an again thing, because I remember N64 games being $70. But again, I'm 300 years old, so I do think that's going to affect folks a lot. Like, that does suck. Yeah. I mean, I understand. Yeah. I also am not an economist, but that is like, oof, that is going to be tough. And yes, again, with Game Pass, some other options that folks have to play most of what's going to be here, that might seriously make that decision for a lot of folks. I will say, now this is because I'm Ms. Immersive Sim of the universe. Deathloop looks amazing. And yes. I was very happy to see like a much more in-depth trailer of Deathloop and some of the story content and some of the fun, like setting up a run kind of thing. That looked incredible to me. And I'm probably going to play 1,000 to 1,500 hours of that game. So that got my heart racing in a way nothing else during that entire presentation did. But the $70 thing was like, ooh, that's going to be a bummer for a lot of people. And that's oof. I don't know what's going on strategy wise here. So,
yeah. I mean, and there was a lot of actually interesting and good conversations around the economics of the $70 game, right? Yeah. Like I'm of the era of the Neo Geo that had $125 carts, right?
Yeah.
You know, like those things were amazingly expensive. Also, they were coming from across the ocean. So it was a really different conversation that happened within that ecosystem and within that broader conversation. The thing I felt like they did within that show, which I thought was actually pretty interesting, was in contrast to Xbox's conversation around, you know, multiple forms in which you can get the games that you want to play, Sony has done this really interesting, like, double down on tradition, right? Where they're just like, we're going to stick to exactly what we know. We're going to give you big blockbuster games like, you know, like Spider-Man or something like that. We're going to do those things and give you that stuff. And then, you know, hopefully that'll be enough with the exclusives that we have to get you into the fold in that space. My question to both of you is, in this isn't the like, who are you picking? You know, which one is better? But I think like more of the, which one feels like it's listening to the room and feels like it's kind of like understanding the space now. Danielle, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
My gut reaction is to say that the folks at Xbox and Microsoft have a better read on what more people want actually at this moment, and maybe what more people can afford at this moment and what makes sense for them. That's my gut reaction immediately. John, do you want to also respond?
Yeah, I get the sense from Sony that they're doing the whole like, you know, we're good. We won the last generation. We're good. We're good. We're gonna do the thing again. You know. So I think in that standpoint, they're legitimately not listening to the room. I don't mean that like, I don't think either corporation is like doing right by the consumer or whatever. Like I don't, you know, I don't think being on the hook for a console for 24 months is like doing right by a consumer necessarily. But I also am like, you know, I've seen threads from people who grew up with low income households who were like, I literally couldn't afford a console.
Yeah.
And now, like, I pay $50 a month for my phone. If I want to pay less than that for the next console and a ton of games, I can do that. I can afford it. And it's like, you know, I hear that and I'm like, okay, like that makes sense. Like that's not that seems to be reading the room of at least like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There is some calculus being done when people are staring down the barrel of spending $1,000 in a holiday season that they don't have. Yeah. If Xbox is like, you can just get it for $35 a month or $25 a month, it's like, all right, well, that seems like a no-brainer for people to walk into a GameStop and go, that's what I want.
Yeah. I mean,
they may not exist in a month, but yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I've had, of course, the internet gets mad at me when I talk about how good Xbox Game Pass is, and I get that initial rebuttal of, well, where the games at? And I'm just like, first of all, stop shaking your neck at me. I'm an adult. I'm older than you. Stop that shit. And then second of all, I'm like, well, you have to understand, and I talked about this a little bit about on Twitch Weekly, or on The Weekly on Twitch earlier today, was Microsoft and Sony are doing two different things. They're not doing the same stuff. I remember literally being in a room with Phil Spencer 5 years ago, maybe at this point, at GDC, where they literally had a big ass map of all the things they were trying to figure out and do. And Game Pass and xCloud is the, coming to fruition of all those things. And I think it's one of the things that I don't know if even the gaming media has really wrapped their brains around in a good way to be able to share with the consumer of how different the strategy is right now between what Microsoft and Sony is doing. John, you wanted to respond to that?
I just, Phil Spencer is such an interesting figure to me because, like, I genuinely believe he thought he could get Project xCloud on Switch, which is like something that he kind of, like, I genuinely believe he thought he could do that. And there's something cool about that, just that, like, we're going to try shit and see how it goes. And, like, I think they probably they have so many irons in the fire that from a corporate logistics standpoint, I just know that they don't have everything figured out. I just know it. Like, they can't. But like, the fact that they're trying this, and the fact that by all / most accounts, the Project xCloud stuff seems pretty cool.
Yep.
Like you were talking about it earlier today on the Twitch show. Like, it seems cool. Like, everyone that's open and has tried it is like, oh yeah, this isn't Stadia. Like, this is like a different thing.
That's the phrase right there.
Big critic. Yeah, and I'm a big critic of Stadia. Like, that thing just fucking doesn't work.
Right.
Sorry, but it's like the Project xCloud stuff. I go, well, it's going to be the same thing, and people are like, nah, it's not. And they seem to be putting in the legwork to actually create an ecosystem, and they genuinely seem to not care that I go buy an Xbox in a way.
Yes.
They just care that I'm in the Game Pass system. I use more Game Pass stuff on PC right now than I do on Xbox, and I don't think they care.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I just think they're psyched about me being on the hook, and like, I don't know what the financial aspect is. And Sony spoke to that earlier today. They made a statement that said, like, the Game Pass model just doesn't work for us. And
what
they kind of alluded to the idea of, like, these games cost a ton of money. We need them to cost, we need them to sell a certain amount, and we need to recoup that money. And they're just being really fairly rigid about their own pricing models. And it's like, I get that in a sense, but I also look at what Microsoft's doing, and I was like, at least we're trying something different. Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, one of the things that I think even, the conversation around the PC, which again got bubbled up a lot because, one, the first thing that they showed in the whole showcase was like, yo, this game is running on an emulator that's supposed to be what the PS5 is supposed to run. My man, look, if you had, I'm about to get into my old black man bag real quick. It was like, I went to the store and I was like, yo, I know I'm supposed to get collard greens with this, and these greens ain't it. These are mustard greens. These ain't collards. I don't know what you're trying to give me right now. This ain't it. You told me you was gonna give me one thing and I didn't get the other thing you gave me. But the thing that I wanted to pull back on was, yes, there's this conversation about, like, the little blurb underneath it, like, yes, it's coming to PS5 and also PC.
Right.
Microsoft on that other side of the fence, which I think is really interesting, I don't think that people understand, is when it talks about the ecosystem, people put PC in this other box, right? It's like, oh, this other box that is not the console and is not Microsoft. And I'm looking at everyone who says that, like, you have three heads, because you're already in the Microsoft ecosystem. You're playing it on Windows. You're playing these games on Windows. You're already in the ecosystem. What are you talking about right now? It's super, super weird that people don't make that distinction, but it is a thing that, again, a thing I shared on the Twitch show was like, it's ecosystem versus system. Ecosystem, Microsoft, system is Sony. One of the things that I did come away with, besides them talking about the $4.99 for the disc version and the disc-less version, the digital one being $3.99, which I thought was interesting, We're showing a little bit of Miles Morales' game if you're listening to the show in audio format. Of course, they showed the big blockbuster games. Again, Miles Morales was one of those for sure. I think that was a pretty big one. Demon Souls was another one that I thought, showcased whatever the system is going to do really, really well. And they ran for about 30 minutes with like back to back to back to back joints, right? Which I thought was pretty smart in terms of what people wanted. I tweeted this out, super, super caps all everywhere, and was like, if they don't show the goddamn box in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to lose my mind. And I feel like, again, even though Microsoft right now is trying to figure out how they're going to pull something out of their behind with an exclusive, how they're going to figure out to keep people excited about Halo, whenever that winds up coming out with all the, air quote controversy that happened about the way it looked. Sony dropped some good joints about the games they had, but again, no one knows the small minutia of what's going to happen when you get that thing home, you turn it on, and it does a thing. That to me is super weird. I don't know how to feel about that. I'm curious about how badly you think they kind of botched that part of the show, because that's a huge deal for people who are like, again, worried about their dollar. What are you going to do with this thing on a consistent basis besides play the games? It's a big part of that conversation. Danielle, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about, if you could be in the mind of a Sony exec to be like, we're not going to show the box.
Right. It's wild. And it's also, aren't you trying to get those early adopters right now? Yeah. Aren't you trying to get tech people who are very interested in specs? Are you trying to get folks who are very interested in the numbers and the folks who are looking at Digital Foundry stuff and like comparing and contrasting how things look in different systems? That's the weirdest part to me. I mean, I fully admit, like, I've become a Luddite. I'm so old that I become like, oh, I just wish one thing did everything. I'm one of those people at this point in life, just because I'm like, I don't want to buy things. Just give me the thing. I'll buy things piecemeal. But I respect and understand that a lot of people really do care about the specs when they're dropping a lot of money on a box that they're hoping will survive and keep playing games and keep having games for them to play for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, however long the next console cycle lasts. You don't want to buy something and then just be like, well, it's, the next failed console kind of thing, which, I respect that. I understand. You don't want a very expensive paperweight, of course.
Right? I mean, John, what are your thoughts about not actually showing the box? I mean, we know what it looks like, but I mean, like, they didn't go through all the stuff that you actually kind of care about, like no UI, none of that stuff.
My hottest take is that I think they hate the design of it.
Huh.
Like, I think they do. I think they got through a year, like the past year, and they're like, we're doing it. We're making this fucking weird box. It's got a popped collar and a controller that looks too big. Like, we're gonna do it, and it's gonna really look good. It's not gonna look like a refrigerator. Like, it's cool. Like, it's really cool. And then they started just like showing it places, and it's like, this thing looks like a router. Like, this thing looks like a router. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think they're like the like they show these like super close-ups of it. And by the way, the interior texture of it looks like a popcorn ceiling of an old apartment.
It does.
Like, it's weird.
It does.
It's so strange to me. And I think, like, I don't know if they want to get in. That is the weird thing, is that, like, we always heard, like, oh no, the PlayStation 5 is going to be really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But then it kind of shifted to, like, it's the SSD.
Right.
It's the SSD that's the game changer. And then they showed that Ratchet Clank demo, which, if I'm reading between the lines, seems to be the best indicator of this system's potential than anything else that's being shown.
Yep.
And it's not that Demon Souls doesn't look great. It's not that Miles Morales looks amazing on PS5. That game looks great. I can't wait for that. The only good Spider-Man. But like, I don't know. I maybe they're. It's kind of like what we were talking about with their tactic of everything else. It's just like, here are the games and here's the box that plays them. Maybe they just got away from that because maybe they just got away from the system specs because they just figured the games were going to sell themselves. But like that early adopter stuff, like they showed that side by side of the 2 launch games, earlier today, and I'm just kind of like, there's one key difference between the two, and it's like Demon Souls. There's Miles Morales, but you can get that for PS4 also.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. I don't know why they got away from it, but with the offerings at the very beginning being so similar, you would think that they would start to call attention to the differences between the boxes.
I mean, the other part of that conversation that I found to be super weird was like, yeah, when they do that side by side of whatever the games are that's going to be out at launch, weirdly, the biggest get is Deathloop for PS5, which I'm super excited about and really hyped about. But it is, again, like, the pickings are real slim when it comes to, like, non-known entities that we knew we were going to get. And people are like, Kahlief, why are you hating on this thing? And I was like, I'm not hating. I just know what I'm going to get already. And you had an ability to kind of show and give me a space to be able to be wowed, and this is also a really interesting thing. Because now we're out of the Sean Layden era, right? And Sean Layden, for as, whatever you feel about him and all the stuff that he has done in that space, he is a showman in a lot of different ways, right? And that showman mentality comes through and came through in all the stuff that they used to do. Put this in a big theater when you could put it in a big theater. But even so, like, all these little mini experiences that would kind of, supposed to like surprise and delight people and give people that experience there. It already feels a little bit like now in the Holman Hurst era that some of that magic is a little bit gone in that way. And that feels a little bit different in some aspects too. So it's like, it could be a philosophy from down on high coming down to the rest of the folks in the business to say, like, we don't need to do that anymore. We don't need to surprise and delight in that way. We will just do the thing that we do. And because we're still on top, that we can knock that stuff out in a reasonable way. The couple things I'm really disappointed with that we didn't get a chance to see, besides, of course, UI and a walkthrough of what the experience would be in that space. So for the thing that they have talked about the most, kind of out of all the parts of that system, has been the SSD and the DualSense. DualSense got no love during that whole press conference. And that, to me, if you were to ask me what's the biggest differentiator between those two systems, it's the DualSense. It's the thing that is supposed to make me feel things that I never felt before. That totally sounded like an R&B song. That was supposed to like change that in a real way for people, and it just didn't get any love at all in that way, which I thought was pretty weird. In the way that worked, I was actually like a little bit surprised that was not a thing that they even talked about. The button on the damn controller that's supposed to do all the stuff that we magically just don't know what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, let me remind you though, Kahlief. Okay, there's a video on the internet of Jeff Keighley for 30 minutes doing this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's more. I mean, you
can really feel it. I mean, I wonder if they. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I'm also like, they've used this kind of pseudo organic, like planted marketing stuff, to show off parts of the specs of the system and the controller and stuff. And I wonder if they think that's enough. I don't. I don't think that's enough. I think they need to start really talking about the stuff that we keep reading about, like Deathloop devs released like a thing on the PlayStation blog that was basically like, when your gun jams, you can't push the trigger down.
Right.
Like, is that going to piss me off? Probably, but like, is that cool? Yeah, that's fucking cool. Like, that's a really cool implementation of that kind of stuff. And like, I don't know, like Nintendo has fun with their, as much as I don't like it, they always have fun with their gimmicks.
Yeah.
Like, they always show off the boxing. They always show off like the weird stuff you can do with the Joy-Cons, and they kind of take a joy in it. And there's a lot of joy that is kind of lacking from the proceedings with Sony. I think.
I mean, that's a perfect segue into the pre-order debacle that happened this morning and yesterday. Again, like one of those things, and we're not going to spend too much time on it because it was just a shit show, but I think it again feels like from a top-down perspective, I know a lot of folks in the gaming community, especially on the consumer side, love to give Microsoft shit for you don't have the games and what am I supposed to play on the thing and I don't know what it's supposed to do and all this other stuff. And it's reasonable because let's be honest, if we're really calling a spade, their lineup is real not looking super, super great, right? In terms of things getting pushed and all those other things. There are some things, of course, down the line that, a lot of people are excited about, but I feel like there is still a space where there is a right to call that thing out. The thing that Sony has figured out to do is let's just really stay pat and try to figure out how we're going to float until the next game comes out, which is also a weird way to maneuver that stuff. But they've done that in a way where the messaging doesn't line up with doing your launch that way, which I thought to be really interesting. Like Danielle, I know you do a lot of work, fine tuning other people's words with the work that you do at Fanbyte.
You might say.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? Of like messaging is a huge deal to get people not only excited, but to inform of like, why do you want to build that thing out? Like what's right now, what's the thing that you feel like is like super, super lacking in that respect for them?
Honestly, for me, neither has made a great argument for you need this right now. You need this at launch. You need to buy this thing. Other than the like very obvious and incredibly weird thing of like, I work in the world's weirdest job where we need these boxes to do our jobs, right? Like, which is like a position of tremendous privilege. So I'm not trying to like, just in terms of like, as a normal consumer, as a person who loves video games, who loves to play what's new, who loves to play like awesome work that developers have done, like nothing I've seen so far has made me like, you got to get it, kid. Like you got to go get it. We're honestly, the Switch did. And yes, I'm a Nintendo fan, but I'm also like obsessed with something like Deathloop, like obsessed with like the cool, weird things that you can do with this new technology, the cool, weird gameplay experiences, the cool, weird, of course, again, immersive sim queen over here. But like, can you imagine some of the systems that you could do with like so much better rendering technology and different layers and having different pieces of architecture in different places? So there's an opportunity there, I think, to capture a person who loves games, but maybe isn't like a super technophile. And they both have really kind of missed the mark for me in terms of make you excited about this tech.
Yeah. Man, it's just super, super disappointing because I of course, like I go into all of these things with a certain level of skepticism. I've been around the block numerous times, but I do still get caught up into the hype, and I was ready for them to blow me away yesterday. And it felt like not only did they miss the mark, but they were in a different room and they were just like, yo, we're chilling over here. This is where all the finger sandwiches are, and y'all can chill out there in the bodega and we ain't gonna talk to y'all because we don't need to.
Press play on the radio ran out. Like.
For real, right? It was like, yo, what is happening right now? I don't know. Like, it feels like it sapped the hype out of the room for launch, and that to me is the part that I feel like is the kind of saddest part, because I have an expectation for Sony to kill this kind of stuff, and like, the one that they did prior. I thought it was pretty good. Like, people clowned on them for the like dark room with the stuff, very David Blaine-esque in what they were doing. But I think it worked because Sony has like this. We're sexy. We have that thing. But it just felt like they just didn't nail that part at all. Before we get up out of here, though, I do want to get your opinions on what do you think is we're a month and a half out, like less than really 2 months away. From all these things dropping and hopefully getting out of your Best Buy carts, if you hopefully got one. How do you kind of think the launch is gonna go? Do you think it's gonna be gangbusters in the way that we have an expectation for these things to go, or do you think because of the pandemic, because of lack of excitement, because of all the factors that we talked about during the show tonight, that it's gonna be kind of a whimper as opposed to a blockbuster? Danielle, we'll start with you and then we'll end out with John.
Yeah, I think there's a case to be made for people who are still in quarantine, people who still have to be in their houses, people playing more games. There's a case to be seen there where, the pandemic actually plays into the favor of Microsoft and Sony, where it's like, look, all you're doing right now is playing with your box. So here's a new box and like enjoy. And like anybody with any disposable income, like after a certain level, might be interested in this as just like, well, I don't know. I bought the bike that talks to me and makes me work out. I guess I'll get this box too. There's like a case for that for a certain population. But otherwise, yeah, I think they've missed the mark on the hype. They've missed the mark on a few things here. I kind of hope it does well, and I kind of hope what happens is what tends to happen, which is, we get great games the next year. We get amazing games, well, of course, again, I won't shut up about Deathloop. That's coming in Q2 of next year. We're going to get amazing games a year later, and then everybody else will be like, okay, all right. Either box is fine. I'll get what I want. I'll get the things that I like, and things will be okay in video game land. So hoping they are, again, hoping that we just get amazing games. That's kind of what I'm here for.
John, do you think that the Sony brand is going to get out of its Saturday Night Fever popped collar apocalypse at this point?
I mean, I do agree a lot with what Danielle said, that like, first of all, something I've been thinking about a lot is the launches of these generational kind of new consoles and stuff. Has one really actually been that strong since like Nintendo 64? Like Mario 64 came out, and that
not
was
really.
Like, that was like a must-have. Like, like part of it is just kind of like, well, all right, are you gonna get in early? If so, cool. Here's what we have. Like, I think the cool stuff comes next year. Like Danielle said. I think it'll be fine. I think both of these boxers are going to be fine. Like, I think they're both cool. I think we'll probably see our first PS5 redesign in like a year and a half. I really mean
God.
that. I really do.
The collar will not be popped.
The collar will not be there. It'll just be a little smaller, a little lighter. How the launch is going to go, I don't know. I was talking to Eric Van Allen over at US Gamer this morning, and he reminded me that literally a week before the Xbox comes out is Election Day. So
I forgot about that.
Just want to think about like the vibe of that week after that.
Ooh.
Yeah, everyone at home, just think about that for a second. You're welcome for that reminder. That week is going to have like a weird fucking vibe.
Talk about the fog, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right. The witching hour is here.
The witching hour is here.
Like, that election week could go one of two ways. But whatever. But the tone of that next week is probably going to be weird no matter what. So
yeah, true.
I think that whole month is wild. You have a ton of games that are coming out the next week too. So like, it's just a weird time, and I keep kind of isolating that launch week. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, cool. I'll feel excited again, and then I'm just contextualizing it with everything else. So it's like, it's just gonna be a weird, really strange week. So
that's
I don't know.
Such a good point. It's so funny because I've been fighting people about this for God knows how many years at this point, but I think it's such an interesting space, right? Where it's going to be like, it might be the safest thing for your ass to just be in the house playing video games during election night and election week. And the month's kind of going off, so and we're not going to get out of Corona before the end of the year anyway.
No.
So, oh man, that is such a great point.
But those boxes will be fine. They're both be fine. I don't know. That's such a boring answer, but it's like both these boxers are going to play video games, or you're going to like them. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
It's a lot of stuff to think about, everybody in chat and everybody in Brookago and everyone back at home listening to the show here in Twitch land and broadcast land and in podcast land. Again, it's going to be a very, very weird 2020 at the end of this bad boy. It's going to be real weird. But to get you through all that weirdness, you will now have Spawn on Me on Fanbyte, and you will also have the wonderful Danielle Riendo and John Warren to bring you some dope content throughout the Fanbyte universe. Again, John and Danielle, thank you so much for coming and rocking with me tonight and sharing the celebratory announcement of us joining Fanbyte Media and the Fanbyte Network. Again, thank you so much for coming through and hanging tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Dope.
I'm so excited.
I'm very, very excited. Before we get up out of here, a couple of quick announcements for everybody who is listening. If you are listening to the show, which usually drops on Tuesdays, you would have missed this information, but we had an amazing time and raised a bunch of money for the folks over at Vote Riders during this past weekend. If you are listening to the live show on Saturday and Sunday of this week, 19th and 20th, we'll be bringing to you basically 24 hours of content, 12 and 12, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. And we have a pretty dope lineup of folks who are going to be rocking with us during our streams. We have the amazing Zombie Kills will be rocking with us for Spawn for Good, Greg Miller of Kinda Funny, Mary Kish of Twitch, who is now, doing her thing. She got a promotion too pretty recently as well. We also have the amazing Malik Forte, Kat Bailey, and Mega Ran are just some of the amazing folks who we're going to have with us for that amazing stream. Again, we're going to be raising money for the wonderful folks over at Vote Riders, who, again, one of the biggest things that we've had a conversation about in the past year, especially this year, has been voter disenfranchisement. Vote Riders helps people get their IDs so that they can go and vote. We also, I think we have it locked in that we'll be having the folks over at from SDGC as well rocking with us, and we might even snag Brad Shoemaker and Alex Navarro from Giant Bomb. So we have a lot of stuff to work on. I am very tired. We have a lot of stuff to do to get things ready for prepped for the show. Again, before we get up out of here, thank you to John and Danielle for believing in what I do, believing in the show, believing on the ethos of what Spawn on Me has been able to do over the past 6 years and been able to do in many, many spaces. It means a lot to me to have people recognize the work and feel like it's good enough to bring into their own fold when they are doing fantastic work. So it is a new dawn in lots of different ways. It is a very, very different space to be doing collaborative work with people again. And it's also going to be really fun because then we get to do cool stuff together than some of the stuff we already talked about. So expect to hear more of me in more places and get a chance to see Spawn on Me grow in new ways. So again, thank you to everybody in Brookago. Massive amounts of love to you all. Please spread the word. It is going to be real cool on social after the show. I'm going to get up out of here because I have some celebratory Prosecco and chicken to eat, which is going to be amazing. Until next week, massive amounts of love to you all. Go check out Spawn for Good this weekend. Donate some money. If you donate over $100, you get a new Spawn for Good shirt that we're going to put up that looks like the Spawn for Good logo. So spread the word. We'll see you during the weekend. Much love to y'all and peace.